Buffalo smells like a football town. It feels like a football town. The climate there, the winds of the lakes, the whole thing reminds you of a football game of the 60s. It's very nostalgic and very classic in that way. And you could talk about the football teams in all the cities in America, but I promise you, it's deeper there. It's deep.
Where else would you rather be than right here, right now? Would you rather be than right here, right now?
There are really only two seasons in Buffalo, and that's Bills season and waiting for Bills season.
That's the way it is in Western New York. It's a way of life. The Bills are a way of life.
Buffalo on a Sunday afternoon, baby! Yeah!
You can get it done. You can get it done. What's more, you gotta get it done.
Let's go, guys. We're gonna knock their ass off.
Here's a run by Antoine Smith. Antoine ran right over the safety. A running play. Thurman Thomas breaks it at the 25. Still on his feet at the 20. Gets down to the 15. The Tampa 5 and scores.
To the city of Buffalo, to the Buffalo Bills organization, I love you.
The Bills have done it again! Do you believe it? And now it's for the 2000, boys.
It's like a college town in many ways. If you go to downtown Buffalo, there's banners out the windows, people wearing sweatshirts and t-shirts. Go Bills, go Bills.
Ferguson rolling out, looking, throws toward the end zone. It is good for the touchdown.
They tore the goalposts down and they passed one of the uprights all the way up from the field to my box.
And that was part of what we wanted to give back to them. We wanted to go out and play extremely well. We wanted to make those people very proud of us.
What a fantastic play by Jim Kelly. Spectacular touchdown run by Kenneth Davis.
Oh, was that ever spectacular?
We're awesome. To be able to accomplish what we did, it's unbelievable.
I mean, how many teams get to the Super Bowl as many times as the Buffalo Bills?
That whole run was a run of greatness, and history will show that there won't be another team to do what this team did.
Reed at the 20-yard line, still on his feet, to the 15, down to the 10, to the 5, in for the touchdown.
I still hear echoes from those sounds which glorify this game. I hear the cheers of the crowd.
Bills can win it here. White puts it down. The kick is on the way, and it is good. And the Bills have won it. Incredible. What a comeback by the Bills.
The memories, they're treasured memories. And to have been part of it, is it gratifying? You bet it is.
Touchdown, Roscoe Parrish! Unbelievable!
73,000 jaws dropped right now because just electrifying, and he brings this crowd to life once again.
All people wanted in Buffalo was just once to say, yes, our time has come.
There can be no finer tribute to the 50th season of Buffalo Bills football than the one in Tampa, Florida, in January 2009.
The Board of Selectors met today, and now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor and pleasure to present to you the Pro Football Hall of Fame Class of 2009. Bob Hayes, Randall McDaniel, Bruce Smith, Derek Thomas, Ralph Wilson Jr., and Rod Woodson.
I'm just so blessed. I realize that some folks may look at this as a sign of weakness or what have you, but I cry because I'm not less than a man. I cry because I am a man. And this is very special to me.
When I started the franchise in Buffalo, you have to have consistency in a franchise because people become attached to a franchise. They take their children to the game. So many people across the country I have met who have said, my father used to take me to the games. in Old War Memorial Stadium in downtown Buffalo.
Pro football returned to Buffalo in 1960. The Bills were one of 8 upstart franchises which challenged the established NFL. Owners of the new American Football League were labeled the Foolish Club.
It started out with Ralph Wilson. He and his father were minority owners of the Detroit Lions. If you're a minority owner of a team owned by the Fords, it's very minor.
It was the novelty of having a football team. He wasn't a billionaire chess player. He really enjoyed the idea of having a professional football team.
Here's a man that started a franchise, builds this franchise in a city he knew nothing about. In fact, the early Bills looked very much like the Detroit Lions right down to their uniforms.
Honolulu blue and silver uniforms were just part of the team's Detroit connection.
They hired Buster Ramsey, who was a Lions defensive assistant, to be the first head coach. And a lot of the players that he brought with him were players that had been let go or he had played in Detroit at one time or another.
Buffalo's first training camp was hardly up to NFL standards.
When we were staying out at the old Roycroft out in East Aurora, as I say, there was 6, 7, 8, 9 guys to a room out there. We practiced on Old Knox Field, which was an old horse pasture. We went through football players like water, and every time an airplane would go over, we'd look up and say, "Here comes a load of football players."
Fans turned out to see the Bills, though the rest of the league was struggling. The Oakland franchise, in particular, was on the verge of collapse.
Ralph Wilson looked at his venture with the Bills as having a stake in the league. He actually secretly bought a large chunk of the Oakland Raiders for over $300,000.
It was against the rules. You couldn't have ownership in 2 teams, but they couldn't have a team fail, because if a team failed, the league would likely have a domino effect.
The league remained on solid ground. The Bills' aging stadium, however, seemed to be sinking into the Buffalo soil. They called it the Rock Pile.
I never called it that because it seemed like that was a little bit disrespectful. I really enjoyed playing there.
It was really a dumpy place, a hellhole. It's the only place I've ever been to when you walk off after a game, we put our helmets on because you get hit with full beer cans. This is the only place that they actually threw full beer at you, which is kind of crazy. It was nice though, because you could, you catch one and have one on the way to the locker room if you're lucky enough to grab one.
In 1962, Buffalo hired Lou Saban. In less than a year, he would completely overhaul the franchise.
Well, the first thing he did was get rid of the blue and silver uniforms. He came in and he changed the color scheme to the red, white, and blue that we actually have today. He pretty much gutted the team. I mean, they called him Trader Lou, and rightly so. There was one Tuesday where he released 5 players, including the starting quarterback. He just got rid of them.
He just sort of set the tone for the entire Saban era. Saban had set a tenure, had created an atmosphere here that he kept all the time he was here.
I want them to enjoy what they were doing. They're going to have bad days and good days, but try to maintain an even keel because you're going to have your ups and downs. Nothing is perfect.
I think he was really good with personnel. He knew how to push the buttons for different players. And the player he had the most problem with was obviously Cookie Gilchrist.
Oh boy, Cookie Gilchrist.
Cookie was a unique guy.
I could tell you a couple Cookie Saban stories, but they'd be X-rated.
He was a mega character.
Carlton Cookie Gilchrist went right from high school to the Canadian Football League. His personality and style of play were just as unique.
I've been in football since I was in the 4th grade. Cookie Gilchrist is the best football player I've ever seen or been associated with.
I think one of the greatest fullbacks in the history of professional sports.
And here was a guy that did everything.
Cookie could play every position but quarterback.
In fact, he wanted to get 3 salaries. He wanted to play offense, and he wanted to play defense, and he wanted to play on special teams, and he thought he had to get 3 separate contracts.
Cookie stuck to offense, and his combination of size and speed were unmatched.
6'2", 251 pounds, 4'6", 40, 52-inch chest, 31-inch waist.
Cookie enjoyed running the ball straight ahead so that he could get to hit somebody.
And he would tell you, you better get out of the way because I'm coming.
It didn't matter if I was in his way or the guy I was supposed to block was in his way. He was going to hit somebody.
It only took one running over to convince me that I needed to block the guy in front of me and get the heck out of the way because he was tough.
Gilchrist was at his toughest when his team needed him most.
It came down to the final game of the season where the Bills had to go to Fenway Park and beat the Patriots.
On the first play of the game, Cookie ran around the end.
And the cornerback on that side was Chuck Shanta.
And Shanta was going to tackle him.
And Cookie had this thing, he would bring up his right arm like a hammer.
And instead of Cookie trying to avoid Shanta, he ran right into him.
Knocks him out cold.
And the players, the other defensive guys are kind of gathered around him.
Cookie turns to the Boston huddle and says, which one of you mothers is next?
Which one of you guys are next?
Which one of you mother is next?
They were right in the tank. We won the game like 32-7 or something like that.
By the mid-60s, the Bills roster included Captain Billy Shaw, safety George Sames, defensive tackle Tom Seastack, receiver Albert Dubinion, soccer-style kicker Pete Gogolak, and a young linebacker named Marty Schottenheimer. But Buffalo's real coup was stealing quarterback Jack Kemp from San Diego.
On the AFL at the time, there wasn't an injured reserve that you could put a player on. You had to waive a player to make room for a replacement.
The Chargers thought they could sneak Kemp through waivers unclaimed. They were wrong.
It was skullduggery, with a friend of mine involved greatly, former newspaperman.
Well, this PR director in the league office called the Buffalo Bills and tipped him off that Jack was on the waiver wire and was available for anybody that grabbed him, and that was my father.
You know, Buffalo Bills, they lucked out big time. We couldn't believe we were going to get a player of this caliber.
Once Kemp's injured thumb had healed, he became an on-field leader, and the Bills became winners. In 1962, Buffalo lost just one of their last 9 games. In '63, they posted their first winning record.
I've always felt that quarterbacking is about 90% mental. That is, there are many football players, many quarterbacks who can throw and carry out the mechanics of quarterbacking, but in the final analysis, the difference between the average quarterbacks and the good ones are the ones that who can handle the mental aspect, that is the audibilizing and the calling of plays.
While the rest of the AFL passed first, Kemp used the run to set up the pass in an NFL-style attack.
Jack was just a great leader. He wasn't a phenomenal quarterback, he had a great arm, but he wasn't the Joe Montana kind of quarterback. He was a leader.
Kemp's leadership faced a stiff test in 1964. After starting the season with 9 wins, the mercurial Gilchrist, upset about his workload, stormed off the field during a loss to the Patriots. Saban immediately cut Gilchrist from the roster.
I went to the squad and I said, in all fairness, I don't like what he did. He hurt our ball and it cost us the game. Now we have a great football team here. This is, Coach, we'd like to discuss it.
It took a meeting called by Kemp the next night, Monday night.
Came back to me and says, we want to do something we can do for Cookie. Would you please bring him back? Because this is all he's got. Now, I guarantee you this, it'll never happen again. How could I refuse him?
With number 34 back in the fold, the Bills won 3 of their last 4 games.
This was a Green Bay style offense and a strong defense led by Joe Collier as the defensive coordinator.
You had guys like Tom Sestak, Mike Stratton, Butch Bird, Booker Edgerson. They won 16 straight games without giving up a rushing touchdown.
The Bills' defense played a major role in clinching their first division title. In the AFL Championship game, Buffalo faced halfback Keith Lincoln and the Chargers' high-powered offense. For Saban, it required the pep talk of his life, one that had a strange impact on the team's punter.
We're like a 17-point underdog at home. And he said, we've gone through everything that we could possibly go through. The only thing I could tell you is heads down, toes up. So Cookie and I went out the door, and Cookie comes back in and goes, "What the hell does that mean?" And Saban said, "I don't know. I'm as nervous as you are."
The nerves showed. San Diego took an early 7-0 lead. Linebacker Mike Stratton changed the game in one play.
And you could hear that whoop all over the stadium. You could just see the whole balloon be deflated. Their best running back down the tubes.
From that point on, it was all downhill for San Diego.
San Diego never recovered. The Bills controlled the ball and the game. Over 42,000 fans watched as the Bills methodically pounded the Chargers. Buffalo was the AFL champion.
We didn't play for money. We played for the ring because the ring, the championship, said that at one point in your life, you were the very, very best in the entire world at what you did.
The Buffalo Bills, champions of the American Football League, are marching toward another division title despite injuries that have wiped out their number one pass-catching combination of Elbert Dubinion and Glenn Bass. Albert Dubinion is regarded as the fastest man in pro football. Today, Dubinion and Bass sit on the sideline, hoping for the day when they can return to action.
When we lost Dubinion and Bass, we realized we lost two of our key men as far as our ball club is concerned. And I'm very much concerned with the fact that in professional football, you've got to throw to be a consistent winner.
The Bills also faced challenges on the ground. Cookie Gilchrist was traded to Denver for fullback Billy Joe. Buffalo won its second straight Eastern Division title and traveled to San Diego for a championship rematch with the Chargers. After Butch Bird raced 76 yards with a punt return, defense ruled the day, and the Bills had their second straight AFL title.
We went out there with a badly depleted team, and we beat them rather handily, and to be the MVP was a great honor, but I think what meant more to me was being able to beat the Chargers for the second straight year.
Following the '65 season, defensive coordinator Joe Collier took over as head coach. Seeking a third straight AFL title, Buffalo was upset at home by Kansas City.
I don't think we were any worse prepared for it or didn't look to it as a big game or what. But we just went in there and we got our butts kicked. That's the only thing I've missed in my whole career. That's going to the Super Bowl.
Would Buffalo have been a better match against Green Bay in the first Super Bowl? It's a question that will never be answered, though some may try.
The Bills players will tell you they were. They might have been a better matchup against the Packers.
A lot of players felt that way, that we would have been a better matchup than Kansas City at that time.
In 1968, age and injury relegated Buffalo to last place. It got so bad that receiver Ed Rutkowski, a former college passer, started several games at quarterback.
Jack tore his knee, Tom Flores hurt his ankle, Benny Russell got injured, Kay Stevenson dislocated the shoulder, and I was kind of the last guy, and they put me in, and my claim to fame is I fumbled against Oakland. We would have knocked them out of the championship race, but had we beat them that day, and if it wasn't for my fumble, we would have beaten them. But we did get the number one draft pick that year, who happened to be O.J. Simpson. And to this day, I always tell Ralph Wilson, he owed me a finder's fee for that number one draft pick.
Buffalo had the first overall pick in the 1969 draft. College football's brightest star was coming to the Bills.
The Buffalo Bills select as their first choice, first round, halfback O.J. Simpson, University of Southern California.
I've always heard there was good fans here in Buffalo, and I think I'll have a good year here with the Bills, and I just hope we can win.
New coach John Roush brought optimism as well.
They thought they were getting a proven leader, a proven winner. He had been to the Super Bowl with the Raiders. He had had several winning seasons as a head coach. So when he came here, all the players were very excited.
John Roush is going to change the world.
Roush did so by gutting the roster.
He got rid of a lot of good ball players.
He wanted his own team. There was football left in a lot of those older Buffalo players, but he just got rid of them.
He got rid of Ron McDowell, he got rid of Butch Bird, he got rid of Ederson, he got rid of myself. He got rid of a lot of good ball players.
He hated McGuire.
The reason he didn't want him around, Paul would always punt the ball and try to hit Coach Roush on the head with the ball. and say, oh, excuse me.
Along with his roster moves, many questioned Simpson's role in Roush's offense.
3 years, he hardly carried the ball at all. John Roush had used him as a decoy, and they would throw passes to him out of the backfield, and Simpson had hands of stone. He couldn't catch a pass to save his life.
You talk to the players, and they didn't know what John Roush was thinking. They had who turned out to be the greatest runner of all time, and what were they using him for? They had a cannon, they weren't shooting it.
Roush never hesitated when it came to playing James Harris, the NFL's only black quarterback in 1969.
Going to Buffalo, I noticed that there were black running backs, bunches and bunches. There were wide receivers, as many as you can count, and defensive backs, all you want, but black quarterbacks, zero.
I'd be nervous either way, whether I was starting or just dressing and coming out to play. Well, I'm real happy and honored. I just hope I can do good.
Harris performed well and became the Bills' starter.
James Harris could throw a football through a brick wall.
I'm not bragging about it, but I had a very strong arm. Sounds braggadocious, but and he had a stronger arm than I had.
Harris persevered through prejudice. But he couldn't overcome the Bills' penchant for mistakes.
Difficult thing was we was not a very good team. You know, we didn't win. I was accustomed to winning. I took losing hard, and it was difficult from that standpoint.
Roush was fired prior to the 1971 season. To resurrect the franchise, owner Ralph Wilson once again turned to Lou Saban. Saban's first task was to jumpstart the stalled career of O.J. Simpson. But after 3 wasted seasons, number 32 was ambivalent about football.
Came into camp and he said, Coach, I don't think I want to play. I'm going to go home. Forget it. I've had a tough time. I've had enough of this criticism, etc., and etc. And I said to him, O.J., if you're serious about quitting, I wish you the best. I said, but if you stay, you just might like it.
When Lou Saban came in, Lou recognized what he had, and he recognized this is the best player I've got, and I'm going to build everything around him.
The first thing he did was build an offensive line. They went out and they got Joe DeLamielleure, ends up being a Hall of Famer. They brought in Reggie McKenzie. They had Bruce Jarvis, Mike Myler later as a center, Donnie Green, and Dave Foley. Gets a tackle, turns him into a tight end, Paul Seymour. Takes his fullback, turns him into a blocking fullback. Jim Braxton hardly ever carries the ball that year. Turned his wide receivers, J.D. Hill and Bob Chandler, into blockers and says, this is my offense.
They called the offensive line the Electric Company. Reggie McKenzie, why do you call yourselves the Electric Company? Because we turn on the juice.
In 1973, the Electric Company flicked the switch on a season like no other. On opening day, Simpson stunned the New England Patriots, rushing for an NFL record 250 yards.
Once they got that game, that 250 yards, it made such a powerful statement about Simpson and about that offensive line. There's just no stopping that team for the rest of that season.
The Juice christened New Rich Stadium with electrifying runs that left both fans and opponents in awe.
The thing that really made him what he was his ability to run away from everybody.
With the Electric Company opening up huge holes, Simpson ran with ease through opposing defenses.
He was just complete. He was big and strong and fast.
During the first Monday Night Football game ever played in Buffalo, Simpson topped 1,000 yards. It was only the 7th game of the season. The race was now on to break Jim Brown's single-season rushing record of 1,863 yards. By the season's final week, the stage was set. All that stood between O.J. Simpson and football immortality was a snowy field and the New York Jets.
On the Wednesday before that game, they were all sitting in a room, the offensive line, the offensive coaches, and O.J., and they were watching film. At one point, Reggie McKenzie said, "We will not be denied." And then each guy picked up on it, and then pretty soon everybody in the room was saying, "We will not be denied, we will not be denied, we will not be denied."
Going into the game, we needed 61 yards to break Jim Brown's record. And as a unit, I mean, it was just no way it wasn't going to happen. If we had to do it 61 times, we were going to break the record. It was just a foregone conclusion that it was going to happen. And once it happened, Reggie McKenzie came in the huddle and said, "Now let's go get the 2,000.
I was just like a little boy. When we went for 2003 in the snow in New York, and we had to get the last 5 yards to break the record. It was something I'll never forget. I can't even describe it. It was that exciting.
By 1974, O.J. Simpson was the NFL's most popular player.
O.J. was the consummate player that you'd pay to see.
The Bills were now in the national spotlight. Simpson was the focal point, and Saban went with what worked.
When you went to play the Bills, you knew where it all began. You knew to beat them, you had to stop him, and yet teams still couldn't do it.
Simpson posted his third straight 1,000-yard season in 1974. He was aided by an improved passing attack, led by second-year quarterback Joe Ferguson. The defense contributed its share of big plays as the Bills got off to a 7-2 start. Up next was a showdown with the rival Miami Dolphins, the defending Super Bowl champions.
We're at the crossroads. And no question about that. But it's not the end of the world. I just want us to do a job that we're capable of doing. If we die together. You can get it done. You can get it done. What's more, you gotta get it done.
Late in the game, Buffalo trailed by a touchdown. With Joe Ferguson injured, the Bills were forced to rely on rookie quarterback Gary Morangi.
We're gonna go in the blue, so 53, they try to hit Bobby in the middle. Got the idea?
Number 17 responded, leading the Bills to a game-tying score.
So I'll even now, just like an even game. Defense, you gotta do it.
The defense didn't do it, and Miami drove toward a winning touchdown. Once again, the Bills wilted in Miami.
56 seconds and we let them get off the hook. But we're coming after them again next week.
While a division title was out of the question, the playoffs still remained a possibility. Against the Colts, the defense redeemed itself. The unit collected 8 sacks and picked a 6-0 shutout. The Bills were headed to the postseason for the first time since 1966. The Bills and their enthusiastic fans traveled to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers.
These flowers are for the Pittsburgh Steelers funeral. The Buffalo Bills are going to bury him today. They're just going to put him under. We figured we'd have to pay our respects to the Steelers.
Buffalo gave the Steelers a heavy dose of the juice.
Go Juice! Come on, Juice!
Simpson softened the steel curtain. Quarterback Joe Ferguson capitalized, finding tight end Paul Seymour for a touchdown and an early lead. In the end, the eventual world champion Steelers proved too much for the Bills. it would be 6 years before Buffalo would reach the postseason again. In 1975, Saban opened up the offense. More of an emphasis was placed on the passing game and quarterback Joe Ferguson.
The passing game is not as easy to coach as the running game. There's no doubt. It takes a whole lot more hours, both on and off the field, to get a good passing game going.
The work paid off. Ferguson produced a career year in '75, throwing an AFC best 25 touchdowns.
When he went in his rookie year, that was '73, that was the year OJ went over 2,000 yards, so Joe was just handing the ball off. But eventually they realized that this guy's got a rocket for an arm.
Ferguson, one of the greatest passers who ever played the game.
The Bills' offense went from one-dimensional to one of the best. They could score from anywhere on the field. In 1975, the unit led the league in both yards and points scored, averaging 30 per game. Defenses could no longer key on Simpson. In 1975, he once again had a season for the ages, rushing for over 1,800 yards.
The Steelers had won the Super Bowl the year before. O.J. ran for 227 yards against them.
Even against the league's best defenses, Buffalo scored with ease. The problem, so did their opponents. With the league's worst pass defense, no lead was ever safe. Although they produced a winning record, the Bills failed to make the playoffs. The following year, a cloud of uncertainty was cast over the franchise. After a 2-3 start, Coach Lou Saban unexpectedly resigned.
It had an effect on me, and it had an effect on everybody. We'd gone from a playoff caliber football team to only winning a few ball games.
One of the few bright spots in 1976 came on Thanksgiving Day. In Detroit, Simpson produced another record-setting performance, rushing for 273 yards in a loss to the Lions.
Second down and 9 at the 31-yard line. Morangi to O.J. O.J. running to the left, turns the corner to 30. O.J. at the 25, the 20, and falls ahead of the 15. That does it. He broke the record.
The game marked the end of an era, as Simpson's best days were behind him. The following year, injuries limited O.J. to just 7 games. After the season, he was traded to the 49ers.
The problem with the trade at that time was there was nothing else. The Bills had nothing else. They were 2-14. There was nothing else to look forward to. All we had was O.J. So what now?
On January 11th, 1978, Chuck Knox became the 7th head coach in Buffalo Bills history. Knox was a proven winner with an outstanding track record. 5 consecutive NFC West Division titles with the Los Angeles Rams.
We have a program. It's a sound program. It's a winning program. It's tested. It's proven.
I think he's going to start the adrenaline moving with the Bills, and this is what we need.
I think I've been one of the Bills' better fans, and I haven't missed a game since the Bills been here. And as far as the Bills are concerned, I don't think they like to lose any more than I do.
The foundation of Knox's philosophy was defense. He built through the draft, choosing Lucius Sanford in the 4th round in 1978. And then a year later, selecting Jim Haslett and Fred Smerlas, both in the 2nd round. In addition, Knox brought in veterans from his championship teams with the Rams.
He brought in guys like Isaiah Robertson, Bill Simpson, Preston Dennard. Then he went out later on and got Phil Villapiano, Lawrence McCutcheon. He brought in players that he knew he could count on. He had rookies that he let play. He let guys like Fred Smerlas, Jim Haslett, Shane Nelson. He let these guys develop into great players.
At the time he came in, we were kind of down and needed to be built up. He brought in some players to made a big difference in us and turned us around quicker than the players that were there anticipated, and got rid of some guys that weren't participating the way they should have been. And he was able to bring out the player in the player.
Knox constructed the Bills carefully with thoughtful planning and preparation. Opening day 1980. The opponent, the Miami Dolphins. Enough said.
Well, 1970 to 1980, that's all you really need. 2 times a year for 10 years, 20 in a row, and that pretty much stunk.
The Bills had been Miami's whipping boy for what? They lost 20 games in a row. And so, it was just an embarrassment to the community. So now the Dolphins come in with Don Shula, and they're ready to win another game.
It played right into all the insecurities that Buffalonians have. It played right into that feeling of inferiority. Everyone hates us. No one gives us a break. The NFL is always out to screw us.
On that picture postcard Sunday in Western New York, the Bills exercised 10 years of demons. Nothing would diminish the emotional release that accompanied the thorough pounding of the hated Dolphins.
Ferguson rolling out, looking, throws toward the end zone. It is caught for the touchdown. Caught by Rosen on left. A leg grab for the touchdown. And pandemonium reigns at Rich Stadium. The streak is over. Long live the streak.
The players left the locker room and went back onto the field 15, 20 minutes after the game because the people wouldn't leave. They were still in the stands. There was 80,000 people in the stands.
A couple of guys put the goalposts on their shoulders and marched it up to Ralph Wilson's box and said, "Look what we have for you, Ralph." It was incredible.
Grown men were frolicking around like children because the players got it. They understood what the end of this streak meant. Ding dong, the wicked Dolphins were dead.
Buffalo's got a spirit, talking proud. Listen up, and you'll hear it talking.
The victory over Miami was just the beginning. 4 more wins followed. The Bills, with a 5-0 record, were alone at the summit of professional football. The Bills were setting the terms of engagement on both sides of the ball. A nasty defense, a dominant running game that featured rookie 1,000-yard rusher Joe Cribbs. The Bills had become a civic treasure, a spirited reflection of a hard-working blue-collar city that celebrated the old-fashioned virtues like integrity, responsibility, and reliability. On the final Sunday of the 1980 season, the Bills played for their first division championship in 14 years.
The top-rated defense in the NFL has got to dig in now, or the season could be lost. The Bills need to hold them to win their first division title since '66. 2 seconds to play. There's the long throw toward the end zone, and it is deflected, incomplete, and the game is over. And the Bills have won the division championship. What a dramatic finish in the fog and the rain of San Francisco.
Buffalo's got a spirit, talking proud.
The Buffalo Bills in 1980. We're talking proud. Proud of being in Buffalo. Everybody in Buffalo got an uplifting from the fact that we won a division the first time in 15 years. And they were playing this song, "We're Talking Proud," all over Buffalo.
The AFC Divisional Playoffs. Joe Ferguson, playing on a badly sprained ankle, valiantly represented the aspirations of a team and a community. Statistics may measure a quarterback, but Ferguson showed the courage that measures a man. His heroic effort was not enough. Late in the fourth quarter, the dream of playoff glory turned into a nightmare. The Bills had lost in heartbreaking fashion. Yet that singular moment of despair did not extinguish the winning flame that now burned brightly in Buffalo. 1981 proved to be another strong year, as the Bills were now solidly entrenched as one of the NFL's top teams. A miracle finish against division rival New England was the highlight of the regular season.
12 seconds left. Dropping back, in the pocket, looking. There's the Hail Mary, headed for the end zone, and it is caught for a touchdown! Caught for a touchdown! I don't believe it! Never in my life have I seen an ending like this one. The Bills are alive!
That was the catalyst, as the Bills won 4 of their final 5 games to reach the playoffs for the second consecutive season.
Ferguson dropping back to throw. He fires to Lewis. He got it. Down to the 30. 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, and he is in for the touchdown. Ferguson dropping back. He throws. There's a touchdown to Frank Lewis.
The Bills seized the moment. But as was the case in San Diego 1 year earlier, the outcome hinged on one dramatic play, with time stealing away.
And oh, what drama in Shea Stadium. 10 seconds left. Richard Todd looking. He throws it, intercepted by Bill Simpson. And with 2 seconds left, the Bills are going to win it.
The Bills had their first playoff victory since 1965. The season ended the following week with a loss in Cincinnati. But under Chuck Knox, the Bills had emerged as a significant force on the NFL landscape. They were poised to take yet another step forward in 1982. '82 proved to be a decisive year for the Bills franchise. A players' strike shortened the schedule to 9 games. Buffalo ended the season with 3 consecutive losses and failed to make the playoffs. The status of head coach Chuck Knox lingered like a dark cloud as the Bills struggled through the disappointing finish.
Ralph Wilson had offered me a new contract, and I respectfully declined. I just felt that I wanted to get out of there. I didn't know where I was going to go.
Just wanted to move on. I think he wanted to get back closer to the West Coast, and I think at that time the Seattle kept coming up. He wanted to get back to the West Coast.
But I think more than anything, he got to the point where he felt he had taken it as far as he could. The team was starting to decline. I don't think he saw any improvement on the horizon. He didn't want to rebuild.
Kay Stevenson, the quarterback's coach under Knox, was named the new head man.
When Kay Stevenson got the job after Chuck left, we felt good about it because Kay had been there through Chuck's regime. At that time, we were a football team that was kind of going downhill anyway, and so we didn't have a lot of good football players on the team at that time.
The first year they went 8-8 under Kay Stevenson, I think the team felt that they still were competitive.
The highlight of the 1983 season was a record-setting performance by Joe Ferguson at the Orange Bowl in Miami.
Ferguson drops back to throw, looks toward the end zone, throws, a man is there, touchdown! And the Crescendo War starts up here in the Orange Bowl. Miami blitzes. Here's Ferguson looking. He throws long down the left side for Franklin, touchdown!
Ferguson completed 38 passes for 419 yards and 5 touchdowns. His 5th scoring pass came with 23 seconds remaining in the 4th quarter, and the Bills trailing by 7.
Ferguson waiting for the snap. He rolls out to the right. He throws, touchdown, Joe Buck. Here's the try by Joe Danello. Waiting. There's the put down, the kick. It's long enough, and it is good. And the Bills have beaten the Miami Dolphins in the Orange Bowl for the first time since 1966.
Following the Miami victory, Kay Stevenson won only 6 more games as the Bills' head coach. After 4 consecutive losses to open the 1985 season, Stevenson was replaced by defensive coordinator Hank Bullough. Bullough was only in his first season in Buffalo. He faced an insurmountable challenge.
Bullough, I don't think that there was any sense that this was the man to take us anywhere. He had no track record. He had nothing to show that he had ever led a team to anywhere other than in college. And again, he inherited a bad team from Kay Stevenson. By that time, the team had Vince Ferragamo and Bruce Matheson as its quarterbacks, and these guys were not proven pros.
There was a 46-game stretch from 1983 through 1986 in which the Bills won only 7 games.
There were jokes going around, Did you hear the Bills got a new coach? His name is Win One Soon. There were knock-knock jokes. Knock, knock, who's there? 0-8. 0 and who?
Civic pride had taken a hit. Bills fans were no longer talking proud. Following the 1983 season, a high-profile draft choice shunned the team and the city.
Buffalo selects quarterback Jim Kelly, Miami of Florida.
At the time, as a place I really didn't want to go, I didn't know much about the team. And of course, at the time, the Bills weren't doing very well. And of course, I wasn't thinking about going to Buffalo, and I ended up not going to Buffalo.
I think the feeling among the fans when Jim Kelly refused to come to Buffalo was that, we can't get anybody. Nobody wants to come here. How are we ever going to get better?
The Bills screwed up again. That's the way the people saw it, the fans saw it.
The 1985 draft provided a glimmer of hope. The Bills selected defensive end Bruce Smith with the first overall pick. And then in the 4th round, they took wide receiver Andre Reed. No one could have foreseen it at the time, for those were dark days in Buffalo. Yet, the drafting of Reed and Smith proved to be the initial step in a turnaround that would propel the Bills to elite status in the NFL. '86 was a defining year in the history of the Bills franchise. It began rather quietly with the naming of Bill Polian as general manager, and then exploded with the signing of Jim Kelly in August.
Kelly signed a contract with the Buffalo Bills. He'll get the start at quarterback, and man, I don't think there's been an opening day that's been as eagerly anticipated as this one, and Kelly has made the difference there.
Kelly trying to get it going here. Dropping back to throw over the right, and it is caught by Reed at the 40, 35, 30, 25, 20.
Kelly brought a primal toughness and an arrogant swagger to a team lacking both.
Time, they're so wide open. Just give me no time. No hold. Push them up. I tell you what, they're open. Just give me some time.
Most importantly, he gave the Bills leadership and stability at the game's most critical position. Midway through the 1986 season, a coaching change was made. After only 4 wins in 21 games, Hank Bullough was released. The new man was a bold and somewhat controversial choice, given that he had not been in the NFL since 1983.
Bill Polian had just been made general manager of the Buffalo Bills, and I was enamored with his abilities. Well, when they made the midseason change, Bill went to owner Ralph Wilson, who did know me from the time I'd been in the NFL, recommended that I be brought in. They called me. I was stunned, and I got in my car, and I was down there as fast as I could go under the speed limit. First meeting when I walked into the room mid-season, 1986, Jim Kelly and Bruce Smith and those fellas were all in the room. I couldn't have pointed them out at that time. But what I said to them was, fellas, what it takes to win is simple, but it isn't easy.
The best way to accomplish that was to simplify and reduce. So we told our players, we're going to give you a relatively small package to learn. you better learn it well, and you better play it well. We can put the lines on the board, but the lines on the board aren't going to win.
When they're punting into the wind, you got to be awfully...
Under Levy's steady guidance in all phases of the game, the rebuilding process was accelerated. The first
that might not have ended up here in Buffalo were a result of Bill Polian.
In 1987, the Bills swept the Dolphins for the first time since 1966. In the win at Miami, Buffalo overcame a 21-point deficit, one of the most memorable comebacks in franchise history.
The end zone, Burkett, touchdown. This could win it for the Bills. The put down, the kick is up, and the kick is good, and the Bills have won it in overtime.
In Buffalo, the Bills shut out the Dolphins in a thoroughly dominating performance.
It is caught by Burkett. Touchdown. Oh, what a great catch by Chris Burkett.
Let's get this block is big.
1987 also saw the Bills defeat the defending AFC champion, Denver Broncos. Buffalo was clearly a team on the rise, and their head coach knew it.
Congratulations. Hell of a job. You beat the team that represented the AFC in the Super Bowl. And you're as good as they are, and you're going to be the team that should set your sights on doing it this year. You can beat them all, and you know it.
It did not happen in 1987, but the foundation was being built brick by brick. The Renaissance was coming. A group of losers was on the cusp of being transformed into a team of champions.
It was in 1987. We were playing the Eagles, and it was after the game. I sat there, I told Biscuit, I said, look, man, you know what? We got a chance to be really, really damn good.
By 1988, the scene around Buffalo was changing, nowhere more noticeably than at Rich Stadium.
I remember the first game we played here. We walked out into the stadium and it was filled, and our crowd was very vocal and very noisy, and we got ready to play, and an emotion overcame me, which was a very, very sincere one. And I looked around at our players, and I looked in their face, and I sort of sensed they were feeling the same thing. And I just said to them, where else in the world would you rather be than right here, right now? And it's the way we felt every time we've gone on the field. So that's sort of become the last thing I say to them before we break that huddle and take the field for the game.
Okay, guys, where would you rather be? Right here, right now.
The desire was palpable, the talent sublime. All pros and future Hall of Famers were everywhere, playing fast and hard.
Look at my job.
We came out and we just started beating on folks.
Snap from center, and the kick is blocked, and it is taken into the end zone for a touchdown by Rob Riddick. How do you like that? Back to throw, and he throws long for Harmon, and he's in for the touchdown. Mikowski drops back to throw. It's intercepted there by Kelso at the 25, at the 30, at the 35, 40, 45, midfield. Down to the 40, breaks into the clear at the 30. One man with an angle on him. He's at the 10, the 5, and scores. The put down, the kick is up, and it is good. It is good. The Bills have won it in overtime. They win the division championship, and this place is bedlam.
People were like, well, where did they come from? How did they get to be this good that quick? I mean, but we just had a lot of young, talented guys that really wanted to play the game.
You could see it all happening. You could see from time 86 till we stepped in. Yeah, we had some ups and downs just like most teams would have, but in 88 we were already in the AFC Championship game.
Despite being the new kids on the block, the Bills came close to knocking the Bengals block off. Big and bad, the Bills didn't win, but they were now bona fide contenders.
For the Bills, a very disappointing end to an outstanding season, one that people would never have dreamed of when they started. That this team would go 13-5 and go to the game before the Super Bowl.
88 didn't end up quite the way we wanted. We didn't reach it, but 3 years' time, we totally changed a franchise around that everybody laughed at the beginning, but the late 80s, early 90s, not too many people were laughing anymore.
By 1989, the Bills were a team to watch and wonder about, especially their identity-challenged quarterback.
What, the nickname for Jim? Heathcliff. I mean, he's that cat that thinks he's a dog. I mean, he's a quarterback, true, but he thinks he's a linebacker. Looks like Fred Flintstone running, but he tries to run, and he'd run head first, jump in the pile, whatever it took.
The 1989 season opener in Miami was vintage Jim Kelly.
What a finish. Kelly waiting. Last play of the game. Back to throw, and he's going to run, and he dives for the touchdown. He dove for the touchdown. Jim Kelly is being mobbed. The game is over. The Bills have won it in one of the most dramatic finishes in Buffalo Bills football history.
Never seen anything like that, man. Never seen anything like that.
The Bills followed that win with 8 more to clinch their second straight AFC East title and headed into the playoffs as a team knowing they were capable of anything.
Kelly back to throw. Looking. And he's got Reed at the 35, 40, 45 midfield. Down to the 40, to the 30, to the 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown Buffalo. Andre Reed.
Told you, me, you, and Jim got to make the big play. You made it perfect, all right?
The offense gave a bravura performance, bullying the Browns while racking up more than 450 yards. Jim Kelly's 4 touchdown passes kept the Bills close, but the 5th that would have won it never came.
Kelly waiting. Dropping back. In the pocket. Looking. Throws. Touchdown. End zone. No! Oh, it was dropped. It was dropped in the end zone. 9 seconds left. Kelly waiting. Crowd roaring again. Kelly at the 15. Dropping back, looking, throws, and it's intercepted. The Fates turned their back on Jim Kelly and the Bills in the waning moments of this dramatic game in Cleveland.
We learned something from that loss to the Cleveland Browns. We went into the fourth quarter behind by a large score. So we said, heck, we can't wait till the last 2 minutes to go to our 2-minute drill. Let's go to it now at the beginning of the quarter. We marched down and scored a touchdown. When we got the ball back, we marched down and scored another. Before the next season began, we had a 2-minute drill one day, and it was sparkling with Jim at the helm, and he ran it so well. As we walked off the field, Ted Marchibroda said to me, Marv, why don't we open our game, the season opener against Indianapolis, with our 2-minute drill? And I sort of looked at Ted and I said, I've been thinking the same thing, Ted. That was the beginning. We opened, went down, scored a touchdown. Jim completed, I think, 9 straight passes on the drive, and that was our offense for the next decade.
And what an offense it was. It went where it wanted and took what it liked. Best of all, it took almost no time before the Bills had mastered it.
Kelly to pass. He throws long this time, and it is caught. He's on his way for a touchdown.
It was bliss, a symphony of artists playing at the height of their powers. Men like receiver Andre Reed.
Best run after catch receiver I've ever seen in my life. I mean, I've seen them all. You put him inside, the strength that he had. Once he caught the football, he could break tackles, and just a guy that was very smart, knew where to be every time.
No matter where he was, he always seemed to wind up in the end zone.
By Reed at the 40, at the 35, 30, down to the 20, 15, 10, 5. Andre Reed scores!
While Reed was the up-and-comer, James Lofton was the old pro.
Chronological age only gives you an approximation of how old a person might be. There are some 80-year-olds who are very debilitated. There's some 80-year-olds that are pretty spry. James happens to be one of those 80-year-olds that's pretty spry.
The Bills have been unstoppable so far.
We knew that if they had an overload of defensive backs to stop the running game, we could run the ball with Thurman Thomas and Kenny Davis, two pretty darn good runners. If they tried to stack the run, how are they going to stop Lofton, Reed, McKellar, Metzlars, Don Beebe? And one of the unsung heroes of running that no huddle, by the way, was Kent Hull, our offensive center, who in the wink of an eye had to relay the line blocking schemes to his teammates up front, block 300 pounds of dynamite across the line of scrimmage from himself, and remember the starting count.
The brains of our offensive line. I mean, there's times where he would even turn around and say, "We can't run that, Jim. Get out of it."
If Kent Hull was the brains of the operation, then Bruce Smith was the brawn.
This movie is rated R. Adult language and violence. Lots of it.
Bruce Smith, perhaps the most talented defensive lineman ever played a game. I mean, 6'3", 265, 270, strong as all outdoors, run by you, throw you out of the way, run over the top of you. Whatever he wanted to do to you, he could do to you.
Though he could do it all, Smith specialized in sacks, collecting 19 of them in 1990, a career best. And while he gave opposing quarterbacks nightmares, he gave his own defense its rallying cry.
Hammer time.
Hammer time to me is big plays on defense. You get a sack and a forced fumble, something to disrupt the offense. You get on them and you pound on them. You never let them get back up. I mean, you just keep beating down on them until you can't see the head of the nail anymore.
Up in the pocket. He throws, it's deflected and intercepted by the Bills. Leonard Smith at the 30, down to the 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown, he scores! Leonard Smith!
The Bills were rolling, rollicking to win after win, until mid-December, when the indestructible proved otherwise.
And Kelly is hurt. And holding his left knee, Kelly is hurt.
Uh-oh, Heathcliff is down. He doesn't get hurt. Okay, all right. Let's go, Frankie J. Strap it up, let's go. We had all the faith in the world in Frank. I mean, Frank was a great quarterback in his own right. A lot of people don't understand that. Frank could play.
This is where it gets tough and the traffic gets heavy. Reich will throw. Looking, throws. Touchdown! Here's Reich to throw.
Frank Reich led Buffalo to a crucial Week 16 win over the Dolphins as the Bills clinched the AFC East. By the AFC divisional playoffs, Jim Kelly was back. The offense was humming, and the Bills were closing in on football's biggest prize.
Andre Reed runs in for the score, and Rich Stadium has erupted in Fandemonium.
The road to the Super Bowl goes through Rich Stadium. It is the Bills and the Raiders looking to trade the cold and the snow of western New York for a trip to the balmy breezes of Florida and the Super Bowl in Tampa.
That was a game so we could go to the Super Bowl. I said, no matter what happens, I'm going to win this game. I don't care what happens to anything, anybody. I will find a way to win this game because I'm going to the Super Bowl.
Darryl Talley said, "Coach, can I say something?" And I said, "Yeah, Darryl, go ahead." And he turned to the player and says, "When it's too tough for them, it's just right for us."
When it's too tough for them, it's just right for us.
The 1990 AFC Championship game was a whipping, pure and simple. Buffalo's offense was masterful, and even when it wasn't perfect, things turned out perfectly well.
So many things happened to us that game that the ball just bounced the right way. snap, I fumbled, and I went to pick it up, and my helmet got thrown up in my face. I had to adjust my helmet, and I scrambled to the right, and I threw one to James Loft, and he caught and wound up going in for a touchdown.
And they're after Schrader, and he throws it, intercepted by Kelly at the 20, 15, 10, 5, and he is in for the touchdown. The Bills are in the Super Bowl for the first time in their history. It took 25 years to get there, and they did it in championship style.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Congratulations. Your dream came true.
Congratulations. You did a great job. You did a great job.
I'm so happy for you.
Jeez, I'm happy for everybody.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the biggest show in sports.
The biggest story in the world was taking place halfway around the globe as the war in the Persian Gulf escalated.
Everything that was going on in the country, with the helicopters flying around the stadium to checking everybody coming into the stadium, what was going to happen, what was going to happen to our country. Here we're playing the biggest game of our lives. Are they going to postpone it? Are they going to cancel it? And for us, just walking out there and the patriotism and just everything that was going on in our world.
Like Marv says, where else would you rather be than right here, right now?
Where else would you rather be than right here?
Super Bowl 25 was bruising and brutal.
There are going to be some sore football players at the end of this game. This has been tough football.
Just don't get nothing up. First down's your key. You win on first down, huh? And you kick ass on third down.
And Hostetler may put it up here, and he's going to throw, and they're after him. He falls down in the end zone. A safety. The Bengals safety. It was Bruce Smith on top of him.
By the start of the fourth quarter, the Giants had the lead and momentum. All the Bills had was the NFL's best offense.
Tell you, give the ball to Thurman Thomas enough times, and look out if you're playing defense against him.
Here's Kelly shotgunning a running play. Thurman Thomas breaks it at the 25, still on his feet at the 20, gets down to the 15, the 10, the 5, and scores! Thurman Thomas!
There's no question in my mind, had we won that game, that Thurman would have been the MVP of the game. I had something like 156 rushing and added I think his total yardage for the game, was almost 200.
And the Bills have taken the lead with that electrifying play. He broke the tackle of Myron Guyton and ran in for the score. And the Bills are back on top, 18-17.
This was the Bills. Stunning, stirring, superb. Their lead, however, was short-lived. With just over 2 minutes to play, fate beckoned.
Now we have 2:16 to play. The Bills are pinned back at their 10-yard line, and this will be it. One more shot.
And you wouldn't want
Kelly and the Bills.
You wouldn't want it any other way.
No.
You wouldn't want it any other way.
The ball's in my hands. It's Super Bowl. Everything. As a little kid, there it was right in front of me.
90 yards away from a touchdown. 2019. If you're a Bills fan now, you got to believe.
The Bills had reason to believe. Even better, they had players to believe in.
1:31 to play. 1:30 to play. 1:29. And he goes down to the 46-yard line with 51 seconds left. 50, 49. We're down to 12, 11, 10. It's going to be Scott Norwood who gets the shot now with 8 seconds to play. High drama here in the Super Bowl. Here comes number 11, Scott Norwood.
The quiet man of this football team, Scott Norwood. He can fire the shot heard round the world now.
A 47-yard field goal try. Reich puts it down. On the way. It's long enough.
And it is no good. He missed it to the right with 4 seconds to play.
Losses do not come harder, though consolation for a teammate came naturally.
You're numb, but the first thing I thought of was go talk to Scott, tell him don't worry about it, we'll be back. And I honestly believe that.
After the trauma of Super Bowl 25, the Bills could have taken it easy in 1991. Instead, they ramped everything up, including effort and
The Bills have won their 4th consecutive AFC East Divisional Championship.
Back to back to back to back. 1, 2, 3. All the way around. Hello. I got a feeling Buffalo's going to the Super Bowl.
While Buffalo's offense had carried the team through the season, in the AFC Championship game, it was the defense that carried the day.
And he's going back to throw. A little screen pass, batted down, intercepted by Carl Bailey. He runs in for the touchdown. And the Bills are going back to the Super Bowl. It is Mission Minneapolis.
Super Bowl 26 was in a different city, but the Bills had the same luck, which is to say, no luck at all. But while the Bills didn't have a Super Bowl ring, they did have each other. And their enduring faith in one another helped fuel a remarkable playoff run in 1992.
We got 4 games to go. We want to win a championship. In your heart, everybody pick it up just a little bit higher level. And we're going to take it all the way this year now. Let's go.
Fasten your seatbelts. It's playoff time. The Bills and the Oilers ready to get it on in an AFC wild card game.
Jim Kelly had been injured. He's out. Cornelius Bennett was injured. He was out of the game. First series of the game, Thurman Thomas was injured. He's out of the game. So we're playing now without them, and we are playing badly.
That game, Warren Moon had the game of a lifetime. He could do no wrong. Wherever he wanted to put the ball in the first half, he put it. He threw it around us, over us, through us, anywhere.
You don't play a better first half of offensive football than the Oilers have just played.
The score at halftime, 28-3 in favor of the Oilers.
The lights are on here at Rich Stadium. They've been on since this morning. You could pretty much turn them out.
Did I think we could come back with that situation? No. But I did walk over to Frank Reich, sitting there with our quarterback coach, Jim Schaffner, and I said, Frank, they tell me you led the greatest comeback in college football history. Today you're going to lead the greatest comeback in pro football history. And Frank, yeah, sure. And we're walking up the tunnel. Jim Schaffner says, Coach, the greatest comeback, we're only down by 25 points. The greatest comeback was 28. I said, well, Frank doesn't know that.
Actually, they weren't down by only 25 points for very long.
We go back out. First drive, they go down. They intercept the ball. Dishman runs it in for a touchdown. I said, don't worry. We got them right where we want them.
We can overcome, baby. We can overcome this.
Now they overshift. May give it to Carwell here. No, it's Davis running left, trying to get to the corner flag, and he is in for the touchdown.
Yes, we scored a touchdown, 35-10, big deal.
4-man rush, sails it long, all alone, Beebe at the 10, at the 5, in for the touchdown.
Other touchdown, 35-17. Well, okay.
Looking to throw, rolls out, throws down. There is Reed at the 5, in for the touchdown.
And another one, 35-24, still the third quarter. Have we got a chance?
As this game swung, like a tidal wave here at Rich Stadium.
There's the snap. He backs up. He looks. He throws. Reed, touchdown.
Another one? Darn right we got a chance, you know.
You gotta believe. Back to throw. He looks. He throws. Touchdown. They have scored to take the lead with 3:08 to play in the game. Andre Reed, 3 straight touchdowns, and the Bills are in the lead.
Great comeback in playoff history.
Bills can win it here. Wright puts it down. The kick is on the way, and it is good. And the Bills have won it. The Bills have won it. Incredible. What a comeback by the Bills.
To the game, that huge celebration in the locker room, and but finally calms down, and Frank walks over to me. He said, Coach, when you told me I had to lead the greatest comeback, he said, I knew that we weren't down by enough points. That's why I threw the interception. And I said, yeah, Frank, I'll tell you a bigger lie. I believe you.
The Bills won their next 2 playoff games and earned a trip to their 3rd straight Super Bowl, where once again they were defeated. but not beaten. Remarkably, this team wasn't done.
Everybody waiting for us to fall. We may fall a little bit every now and then, but we always know one thing: we're gonna get right back up.
Getting up after getting knocked down is the whole deal. It's what makes a champion. And the Bills of that era were champions. Even if some, like Thurman Thomas, were hard to actually knock down. Thomas had superb balance, uncanny vision, and a graceful athleticism that made him not only the Bills' all-time rushing leader, but one of the NFL's all-time most versatile backs.
Outside the 10, Thurman at the 10, breaks it off, comes to the 5, and goes in for the touchdown.
And in 1993, he helped lead the Bills to yet another AFC East title.
And the Bills win the AFC East title for the 5th time in 6 years.
But the Bills weren't just big stars, but big talents, like do-anything Marvel Steve Tasker.
Not real big, maybe he's my size. Remarkable athlete, very intelligent young man, very dedicated. He could have been a fine receiver, but his contributions on the kicking team were so overwhelming.
With the wind at his back, he sails it on the ground, and is taken by Tasker at the 30, run to the 35, 40, 45, midfield, down to the 45, down to the 30, down to the 20, to the 15, the 10, the 5, knocked out of bounds at the 1-yard line in a spectacular play.
The Hall of Fame picked the all-time All-Star team. They picked one special teams player, Steve Tasker. Does he belong in the Hall of Fame? Without question.
Just about every Bill looked like a Hall of Famer in the '93 playoffs, as Buffalo completed a grand slam by winning its 4th AFC title in as many years. They led into the 3rd quarter.
First and goal. Kelly waits. Thurman runs. Breaks the tackle. Goes in for the goal. Thurman Thomas has scored.
A fumble opened the floodgates in the second half, and another Super Bowl slipped away. But the Bills' faith never did, and their respect for each other and the game never wavered. Four straight Super Bowls? It's an achievement unlikely to ever be repeated, even if not everyone appreciated it.
Nobody wanted us there, but you know what? We were so resilient, and I guess you could say we were pissed off at everybody because nobody wanted us there. Because they say, oh, they're just going to go there and lose. And you know what? Let's see them get there. That was my thing. I said, look, you know what? They can get as mad as they want at me. I'm going back. I'm going back until I drop or win it. And that was my philosophy on it.
It's the only place where grown men can act like kids. It's out here on this green stuff. And not get in trouble or get laughed at. It's fun, isn't it?
Truth is, the Bills loved playing the game. They played it with extraordinary skill and an abiding respect.
There's an event that occurred on our football team that really points out what they're like. Losing 52-17 in a game that we turned the ball over 8 times already. With about 10 seconds left in the game, we fumbled for the 9th time. Leon Lett, the Dallas Cowboy defensive lineman, picked the ball up and took off for what would have been another touchdown. Don Beebe would run a pass pattern down to their goal line, took off after him like that, caught him on the 1-yard line, knocked the ball out of his hand, went out of the end zone, it's our ball on the 20-yard line, 3 seconds left. Did it mean anything to the outcome of the game? No, but it told you everything about what the Buffalo Bills players were made of.
Maybe the Bills played like no other team because they were coached like no other team.
Mickey Mouse, Mickey Mouse, Mickey Mouse. That's the most chicken call I've ever seen. That is the most chicken call I've ever seen, Tony. Who threw that flag, you know? Who? He's an idiot, the guy. Way to put that shoulder in the torso, David. They go down that way.
Forget the football. Marv is a man of compassion, intelligence, good humor, wit. He's going to leave a legacy here.
I've been surrounded by some wondrous athletes, some great people. What a group of warriors I've coached.
But then, what a coach Marv Levy was.
Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, fellas. Thank you.
On behalf of Mr. Wilson, the entire Buffalo Bill organization, great pleasure for me to introduce our new head football coach, Wade Phillips.
Thank you, John.
You bet.
For 3 seasons, Wade Phillips was the architect of Buffalo's dominating defenses. Now he'd have to build up the team's offense as well.
We went over that. Offensive-wise, I told him how to do it. Just score, whatever you do, Wade.
Phillips scored 35-year-old Doug Flutie from the CFL, where he had won 4 championships since leaving the NFL 8 years earlier.
The Toronto Argonauts, Grey Cup champions again.
Well, it's been 8 years coming. I was convinced that they believe in me. There's no prejudices or thoughts going into it that I'm going to get a legitimate opportunity, and that's all I can ever ask for.
What I was told was you'll have an opportunity to compete for the starting job. Within a couple of weeks, they signed Rob Johnson. No problem. We'll compete for this job.
The Bills thought Rob Johnson could be their man. After watching him perform as a backup in Jacksonville, Buffalo inked the promising talent to a $25 million deal in 1998.
Rob Johnson is the opposite of Doug Flutie. If you talk to scouts and coaches and ask them to describe what their ideal quarterback is, in terms of height, in terms of weight, in terms of 40 time, Rob Johnson would be the guy.
There's the quick pass to the end zone. What a play, what a throw by Johnson.
Doug Flutie, on the other hand, was always the small overachiever and just a winner.
Here's Flutie rolling out, and he is in for the touchdown.
What you had was the classic debate between the guy who's much better than everyone thinks he should be versus the guy who's never quite what he's supposed to be. It was certainly a controversy.
And it got ugly, and it really divided a town. You could go through a grocery store in Buffalo and see an argument over Flutie versus Johnson.
Although Johnson was named the starter before training camp, he and Flutie kept things light.
They dug the 80s called They Want Their Hair Back.
Flutes, what's your favorite band of the 80s?
Of the 80s?
Yeah.
Bon Jovi out of the 80s.
Oh, okay. Hey, Flutes, what flag football league did you play in? 12 and 13. What was it?
I played with a bunch of high school buddies. They played in a Sunday morning league. Rule is I got to play receiver. I am way too old for this.
What stuff?
For this conversation. For these actions that go on.
Wait, this isn't typical? Doug, the chicks are drooling over this shot right now. They are.
See, I don't have the buys. I can't put the shirt up over the shoulder pad and look good like Rob. I try to be like Rob, but
yeah.
The role of being behind Rob Johnson would never appeal to him.
Right now, being number 2 is okay. I mean, if anyone were to say they're completely content sitting the bench, they don't belong in the game.
And meanwhile, here's Rob, who seemed very uncomfortable with the idea of being the number 1 guy.
I'm not the vocal leader. I mean, these are men, and they're getting paid, and you're out here doing a job. And my feeling is you got to take care of yourself first before you can worry about anything else.
With his laid-back attitude, Johnson started the 1998 season off on the wrong foot, and the Bills fell to 0-3.
In Indianapolis, Johnson takes a hit and doesn't get up. And in comes Doug Flutie.
And look at this, Doug Flutie now is coming in.
And everything about Flutie's return to the NFL changed that day because he took over. He did what Doug Flutie does. I mean, he ran all over the place, made plays, led the Bills to victory.
He backs up, he throws, and it is caught for the touchdown. Looking, now he runs, now he throws, touchdown. Go Flutie!
Doug Flutie didn't want to flake out in his first NFL start since 1989.
5-1 today. The Jacksonville Jaguars will be 5-1.
In one play, Flutie showcased the attributes that made him a king in the Queen City.
The defining play, I think, of Doug Flutie's time with the Bills was his keeper, the naked bootleg that he runs for the touchdown against the Jaguars.
One play, 18 seconds, game on the line. Does Flutie have a pro miracle? Here's Flutie rolling out, and he is in for the touchdown. This place is bedlam. It is bonkers. It is bananas. It is unbelievable. Yes, baby. Feel the power. The Bills have won it. They have beaten the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Doug Flutie had magic.
And boy, could he sell a box of cereal.
We have a price check on Fruity Flakes. We have a price check on Fruity Flakes.
When are the Fruity Bars going to be in over at Fowler's?
Spellbound Bills fans were buying into Flutie mania.
Buffalo is a tough underdog town. Flutie is a tough underdog player. He became the people's choice, for sure.
Flutie was a savior. It is not an overstatement to say that he saved the Bills.
Hooray for Doug! Hooray, Lance! Hooray for Doug! He's a horse to his ass.
At that point, the future of the Bills in Buffalo was in peril. They desperately needed to sell the luxury suites, which are much more difficult to sell in a market like Buffalo than in a place like New York. He brought back the interest level. He brought back the fans. He brought back the excitement. And he was an exciting guy to watch.
Flutie backpedaling, looks, throws long, down to Moulds, and it is caught, and in for the touchdown.
He is a miracle man, I believe.
Named the comeback player of the year, number 7 led the Bills to the playoffs, where they faced their arch rivals in the first round.
The Bills are stopped at the 5-yard line.
The Fluke ran out of miracles in Miami, but orchestrated an 11-5 record and another wild card playoff berth in 1999.
Down the field, Moulds has it at the 5 and in for the touchdown.
Although wins were up, Flutie's numbers were down when Rob Johnson was brought off the bench for a meaningless Week 17 game. He convinced the Bills that he belonged on the field.
3 drives, 83 yards, 80 yards, and 82 yards, all for touchdowns consecutively in the first half.
This week, as far as quarterback's concerned, I'm starting Rob Johnson, and he's going to play this week for us with Doug being the second quarterback.
In the most infamous playoff game in Buffalo history, Johnson threw for only 131 yards and no touchdowns. But he did ultimately put the Bills in position to beat Tennessee.
The game is on the line. Moore waiting for the snap. The put down. The kick on the way. Long enough. And it is good. Do you believe it? 16 to 15 with 16 seconds to play.
After the Bills had won the game, and we won the game, before the final kickoff, my brother-in-law called, and everybody's calling from Buffalo, we're all celebrating. Then came the forward pass.
Do the Titans have a miracle left in them? If they do, they need it now. Going to be fielded by Lorenzo Neal at the 25. Pitches it back to Wycheck. He throws it across the field to Dyson.
He's got something.
And down the sideline.
It's a miracle! Tennessee has pulled a miracle!
It's not a miracle. It was a crime. It was a fraud perpetrated on the streets of Nashville.
It's totally a forward pass. No question about it. It's physics.
This is a forward
Bills fans will always believe that there was a conspiracy on that play because that's how Bills fans are.
Oh, come on. Who's kidding who? That ref is never making that call, reversing that call in Tennessee. The fans are all crowded around the goofy little peep show.
Within 2 years, both Flutie and Johnson were out of Buffalo. But the controversy surrounding the 1999 playoff game will forever haunt Bills fans.
The Music City Miracle is horrific.
As the Bills entered the new millennium, salary cap restrictions forced them to release 3 legends that had played a combined 42 years in Buffalo.
I don't know if it was appreciated for its magnitude when Bruce Smith, Andre Reed, Thurman Thomas, the final 3 links to the Bills Super Bowls, departed. I think it registered when the Bills got to training camp and people saw so many unrecognizable names and faces on their roster.
I know it was a sad day for all 3 of us. Thurman and I didn't necessarily want to end our careers elsewhere.
It's over! It's over! It's over! Can you believe it?
The new quarterback and member of the Buffalo Bills, Drew Bledsoe.
Hoping to begin another Super Bowl run, the Bills made headlines by trading for Drew Bledsoe. New England's Pro Bowl quarterback had lost his job to Tom Brady after sustaining an injury in 2001.
We came to Buffalo for one reason. That was to be a part of a championship football team and to bring a championship to Buffalo. Thank you very much.
A lot of us were buying the idea that Bledsoe was really a very good quarterback who just had to get healthy.
In 2002, Buffalo made a fresh start with a new star and redesigned uniforms.
Go! Hey, don't come out here waiting for something to happen. Go make it happen. We got to start winning around here. Let's get us a win today. We win on 3. 1, 2, 3, win!
Finishing 8-8, the Bills played some memorable games with number 11 under center.
Touchdown for the Bills.
Bledsoe's most celebrated game took place opening day of 2003. He earned his only victory over his previous team after being reunited with Lawyer Milloy just days before kickoff.
Last week, the defensive captain for the New England Patriots. Today, he starts at safety for the Buffalo Bills.
With a resounding 31-0 shutout, the Bills dominated the eventual Super Bowl champs from the first snap.
Wow! Absolutely, Buffalo knows everything the Patriots are doing.
It is Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies here, friends. What a drive by the Bills. They started it eons ago at the 10-yard line. Pitch is out, run to the right. Here's Henry down to the 5. He's in for the touchdown. Unbelievable. It is pandemonium here.
The Bills were still looking for the next Jim Kelly until Bledsoe could deliver a championship. He'd play second string in Buffalo's heart.
There's only one Jim. Only one Jim Kelly.
Bills fans have learned that the hard way.
Under pressure, he is sacked. The ball comes out. There's a loose ball. Steelers come up with it.
Bledsoe was released after the 2004 season, and the Bills have continued their decade-long search for the next franchise quarterback. Playing in Kelly's shadow isn't easy, but 2007 third-round draft choice Trent Edwards is working to distinguish himself.
On the run from the 15-yard line, Trent Edwards, touchdown Buffalo.
Edwards knows what he needs to do. 2009 marks 9 long seasons since the Bills have made the playoffs. But the NFL's most passionate fans never give up and have been rewarded with some spectacular moments.
Looking for Evans in the end zone. He makes the catch. Touchdown. at Seattle's 35, cuts to his left, spun around, still on his feet, at the 25, open field, 15, 10, 5, touchdown, Roscoe! He is ridiculous. To the 45 to midfield, he's going to the house. Marshawn Lynch at the 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown, Marshawn Lynch. This one is over, folks.
Hey, I'm clutch. Hey, I'm clutch. Like Robert Ory. Hey, I'm clutch.
And as we told the fans at the conclusion of the season, we needed to win more games and we need to take it up a notch. Well, we took it up a notch. Just the thought of what our receiver core looks like right now and what our offense can be with Trent Edwards is very exciting for all of us.
I'm excited about T.O. playing here. He's a proven winner. He's a great player. He's Hall of Fame bound.
I'm leaving America's team to come to North America's team. If I can be that extra added piece, you know, to the puzzle to get them to the playoffs and make something happen, then that's what I'm here for.
The leader of this organization is Ralph Wilson, our Hall of Fame owner. He gives us the resources to be successful, and it's great to say Hall of Fame owner.
50 years after Ralph Wilson brought pro football back to Buffalo, he will be enshrined in the Hall of Fame alongside one of his greatest players.
Pro football to me is not about making money. It's a matter of competition, the thrill of the game, being the greatest sport in America.
I had an opportunity to do something that I love, I had a passion for. That's when greatness takes place.
Time to pay the bills, baby!
Smith and Wilson will join other Buffalo icons inducted in the past decade.
To know the game is great. To play the game is greater. But to love the game is the greatest of them all.
But we always knew that to succeed, we had to do it together. 4 consecutive Super Bowls, I think we can honestly say that we did it together.
Every guy has probably stood up here and in all of these Hall of Fame jackets and probably said that they have had the best fans in the world supporting you. I'm here to say that's hogwash. No fans are like my fans, like Bills fans.
Let's go Buffalo! Let's go Buffalo! Let's go Buffalo!
I think the greatest story for the league, for this country, is the Bills winning a championship, because I don't know where a championship could be appreciated more. I can see that town going crazier than any celebration you've ever seen for a Super Bowl in the history of Super Bowls.
Incredible! Unbelievable! Pandemonium!
One day, it's going to happen. If not my lifetime, Luke's lifetime. The Bills are going to win the damn Super Bowl. I'm telling you, we're going to get it.
This NFL Films production has been brought to you by NFL Network. Watch the National Football League 24 hours a day on NFL Network.